Hello, my name is Craig Poskus. I'm doing chapter 20, Infectious Diseases Manifesting in the Nervous System. This is going to be for Professor Dorkowski's Bio 150 Microbiology. So without further ado, let's get started. So to start with the infectious diseases manifesting in the nervous system, I figured I would first talk about the actual nervous system. So to break it down into two main parts, you got the central nervous system that includes two parts. It's going to be the brain and the spinal cord. Um, so they're both made up of neurons surrounded by bone. The brain is obviously surrounded by a skull, and the spinal cord is inside of a spinal column. The brain is surrounded by meninges. The dura mater, pia mater, and the arachnoid matter. And then next, the second part of the nervous system is going to be the peripheral nervous system. And what that is it's nerves from the brain and spinal cord to sense organs in the body. So there is three major functions to the nervous system. Starting simply with the sensory, it is receptors at the end of the nerves that generate impulses transmitted from the CNS, which I stated in the previous slide is going to be central nervous system. Then you have motor function that involves your muscles throughout the body and the glands. And then lastly, you got the integrative. Basically, it translates impulses into sensations and also drives the motor functions. Moving on to the nervous system defenses before we get into different diseases. Most of the defenses is mainly how it's built. So, for an example, the bony casing around the spinal cord will protect it from like blunt trauma, like traumatic injury. The blood-brain barrier, which I will get into the next slide, that's the only one that's not included by bone. And then the CSF is pretty much, imagine like a cushion. It'll help protect from blunt trauma as well by taking away some of the force. So like I stated in the previous slide, we're going to talk about blood-brain barrier. And what this is basically cells that make up blood vessels, like a wall of blood vessels that surround the brain. And it allows for various things to pass through. This can include molecules, microorganisms, but can also include stuff that we need, like antibiotics or any type of drugs to help fight off infections and etc. But this also helps for the passage of ions and other metabolites in other areas of the body. So that way it's not focused and going to the brains where it doesn't need to be needed. It can be pushed throughout the body's core. Okay, so moving on to one of the more common diseases after we just completed all of the nervous system defenses. Let's see what it's defending our nervous system from. The most common one is going to be meningitis. What this is, it's inflammation of the meninges. The common symptoms, and this is just common, is headache, stiff neck, and fever. There's a lot more symptoms such as like photophobia, increased WBC and the CSF. It really just depends on the type of microorganisms that are causing the meningitis to depend on what the characteristic symptoms would be. It can manifest as acute or chronic disease, just like I said before, depending on which organism is causing the meningitis. Alright, so moving on to our second disease that I'm going over. It's going to be Streptococcus pneumoniae. It's more commonly known as the pneumococcus, also stemming from pneumonia. The most frequent cause, my apologies, this S. pneumoniae is the most frequent cause of meningitis. The bacterium itself is gram-positive, which I went over in a couple PowerPoints ago, the difference between gram-positive and gram-negative. And then the S. pneumoniae's best defense itself that it has against our nervous system is that it is a polysaccharide capsule that helps protect against phagocytosis. Currently, there is 2 vaccines that are available for this treatment. That's as far as the updated medical has gotten. Okay, so next disease that we're going to move into is going to be called listeriosis. This can cause meningitis in the elderly. In healthy adults, it is subject to just be pretty mild as far as symptoms and outcome. The bacterium can cross over from the placenta and cause a premature abortion and even fetal death, basically meaning that during the birthing process or even a little bit before, the disease can cross over from the mother to the fetus and can cause a premature abortion, or it can cause death among the baby. Like I said before, mild and healthy adults. And then this is actually commonly found in dairy products and various types of meat. Okay, so moving into some of the infant diseases. The neonatal and infant meningitis, as I stated in a previous slide, that it can be crossed over from the mother to the newborn. And that's actually the most common way that this infection is passed along. It can cross over during the birth canal through the placenta. It's a various types of ways. The 2 most common causes is Streptococcus agalactiae and E. coli. And the kind of ironic thing about this disease is that since the rates of neonatal meningitis has increased, the reason it's increasing is due to the increased survival rate of the premature infants. So it seems more like the more that the premature babies survive, that the more that this disease will increase. And I know this slide says E. coli, but on the previous slide I mentioned Streptococcus agalactiae, and I just wanted to briefly cover that real quick. It's typically going to be group B streptococci. It colonizes about 1/4 of the female genitalia tracts, the most frequent cause of neonatal meningitis. And that's what I wanted to get into before E. coli. Because see, in one of those boxes I state that it is the second most common one for the neonatal meningitis. So I figured if I stated the second, I'd give you the first. But the scientific name for E. coli is the Escherichia coli. It is the second most common in premature babies, and typically it's going to be a 1 in 5 mortality rate. This is commonly found in premature infants. It's transmitted by the mother during the birth. Those that do survive, the 4 out of the 5 that do survive, usually have brain damage as they go on with life. And that is all I have time for on this slide. I believe my next presentation will be on chapter 23. But until next time, thank you for listening. If you have any comments or concerns, please let me know.